WWDC took place just a couple of days ago, and today I'm continuing with my preview of the major operating systems by talking about iPadOS 26, the brand new version of iPadOS that's set to arrive on compatible iPads in September this year. As always, just a quick reminder that I'm running developer beta software here. This video is purely a preview of what's coming, not a tutorial, and I really wouldn't recommend installing this software on your own iPad unless you're a developer. Apple usually launches a public beta about a month after the developer version, so I'd expect that to land sometime next month. That's typically a much safer way to try it out. Or of course, you can just wait until September when the final version rolls out to everyone. But with that said, here are the 8 things in iPadOS 26 that have impressed me the most so far. Okay, let's get into it. I've already talked about the visual overhaul in my iOS 26 preview video, so I won't go into loads of detail here, but just briefly, iPadOS, like all the other operating systems this year, has had a complete visual refresh in what Apple is calling liquid glass. It's glossy, full of rounded corners, translucent layers, and menus that kind of hover over your screen with subtle 3D effects built in. Combined with the customization options we got last year, there's now a lot that you can do to make your iPad look and feel exactly how you want it. I think it's going to be a bit of a love it or hate it for some people, but from what I've seen in the comments so far, most people seem to be on board. I like it. I think there's just enough flexibility to tweak things the way that I want, and overall, it is a much needed refresh for an operating system that was starting to feel a bit tired. If you open Settings and head into Multitasking and Gestures, you'll see that there are still 3 multitasking options available on the iPad, but one of them is new, and it replaces a previous option. That new option is Windowed Apps, which takes the place of the old Slide Over mode. Stage Manager is still there if you want it, and if you prefer not to use any kind of multitasking at all, you can just stick with full screen mode. But Windowed Apps is the one that people have been asking for a really long time now. The idea is simple. When you open an app, it will open in full screen by default. But now if you swipe down slightly from the top of the screen, you'll see 2 things appear. A menu bar, which I'll come back to in a second, and the familiar red, amber, and green traffic light system that you'll recognize from the Mac. If you tap on that traffic light icon, it expands slightly to give you 3 options. Red closes the app, amber hides the app, which keeps it running in the background and lets you bring it back by tapping on the app icon again, and green lets you toggle between full screen and a windowed version of the app. Now, we've had windowed apps before on iPad, so that part isn't entirely new, but what is new is the amount of control that you now have. You can resize the app window to almost any shape or size and even drag part of it off screen if you want. At first, I wasn't really sure why you'd want to do that, but if you're juggling multiple apps on a smaller screen and you want to push one out of the way temporarily, this gives you a really quick and easy way to do that. You can also now swipe windows left or right really easily. Just grab the window by the top bar and flick it to one side, and it'll automatically tile that app on either the left or the right. It's very natural and very intuitive to do. Windows can also overlap each other now just like they can on the Mac. So if you want to work with multiple apps visibly on your display at once, you absolutely can. Just tap on any window to bring it to the front and make it the active one. It's as simple as that. In my limited time playing around with this, I think it's really good. It doesn't feel like a night and day difference compared to the multitasking that we had before on the iPad. It just feels easier and a bit more like the multitasking experience you get on a Mac, which I think is ultimately what most iPad owners were hoping for. It's very straightforward, it's very intuitive, and if you're someone who already makes use of multitasking on your iPad, I think you'll find this a really welcome addition. By the way, if you own an iPhone and you enjoy tips and tricks videos like this, you should definitely check out my dedicated iPhone training product, iPhone Essentials Plus. It's over 150 lessons covering every aspect of your iPhone, with more content being added all the time. Every lesson includes a short video, a step-by-step guide with screenshots, and a downloadable PDF. So no matter how you like to learn, you're covered. The portal has been designed around iOS 18, but I'm already in the process of updating everything for iOS 26 later this year. There's no ads, no sponsors, just content, and it's all available for a single price with no recurring subscription. If you're interested, scan the QR code on screen or follow the link in the description or the pinned comment. So following on with the theme of features that aren't necessarily new to iPadOS but feel like more refined versions of what we had before, Apple has also added what they're calling Exposé. You access this by swiping up from the bottom and holding for a second with your finger, or if you're using a Magic Keyboard trackpad by swiping up with 4 fingers. Previously, this would show you a fairly basic grid view of all the apps currently open, very similar to what you'd see on an iPhone. But now with multitasking improvements, this gives you more of a bird's eye view of everything that you've got open in the window sizes that you are actually using them in. So in my opinion, it's a little bit easier to jump from one app to another using this method. Again, not necessarily a brand new feature and not hugely different, but just a small progressive improvement that does make multitasking feel that little bit more useful. Something that is new in iPadOS is the addition of a menu bar, and if you've ever used a Mac before, this is going to feel instantly familiar. But if you haven't used a Mac, it might take a little bit of getting used to. Essentially, in any app, if you give a quick flick down from the top of the screen, you'll see a menu appear in small text right across the top. The option on the left-hand side will always be the name of the app that you're currently in, just like it is on the Mac. Typically, this is where you'll find things like app-specific settings. So in the Mail app, for example, if you tap that option, you'll see a shortcut to Mail settings. The nice thing about this is that it gives you quick access to the settings for whichever app you're in without needing to open the main settings app and scroll through manually. The other menu options are split into categories, again, just like on the Mac. So in Mail, you've got File, Edit, View, Mailbox, Message, Format, Window, and Help. Each of these then contains a list of available actions. Most of the functionality isn't new. It's all stuff that you could already do within the app. But this new menu bar makes it so much easier and more consistent to find. Instead of tapping around and guessing where something might be hidden in the app user interface, you can just swipe down and access it from the top. This seems to be working for all of the Apple built-in apps that I've tested, and I've tried it in a few third-party apps as well. While the menu bar does appear in those, the options inside are more limited depending on the developer's implementation. I would expect third-party developers will gradually start to adopt and build out proper menu bars when the new system releases. If you're enjoying the content here, why not sign up for my weekly newsletter, which is all about tech news and tips delivered free to your inbox each Friday. Sign up via the QR code on screen or the link in the description. The Files app has had a number of really welcome quality of life improvements in iPadOS 26, helping to push the iPad even further towards being a genuine productivity device, a bit more like what you'd expect from macOS. When you first open the Files app, it might not look hugely different at first glance, but there are definitely some notable changes here. First up, you now have the ability to switch between different views, icons, list, or columns, just like you can on a Mac. It makes managing and previewing files a lot easier, especially when you're working with large folders. There's also a new way to customize your folders. Just long press on any folder, and at the bottom of the menu that appears, you'll see an option called Customize Folder and Tags. Tap into that, and you can change the folder icon, choose an emoji to display with it, and even assign a tag. The color option here might be a little confusing. It's actually just the standard tag system that Apple's used for years on the Mac, where tags are associated with colors, but it is still a useful way of visually organizing your folders. When you're inside a folder and you find an image, you can now long press on it and choose Open With. This is a feature that Mac users will be familiar with, and it's a really helpful addition to the iPad. So if you've got multiple image editing apps installed, you can now choose which one to use for a particular file type, which is going to be a huge time saver, especially for professionals. And finally, you can now drag folders from the Files app straight into your dock. Again, a small change, but one that makes a big difference if you're constantly switching between key folders throughout the day. It's great to see Apple continuing to bring Mac-level functionality to iPadOS. One thing that stood out to me on my M2 iPad Pro, which is one of the devices that I've got running the developer beta, is just how much more detailed the battery section has become in iPadOS 26. So when you go into Settings and then into Battery, you'll now see a whole lot more information than we've had access to previously. At the top, you can see your current charge level along with when your iPad was last charged and how full the battery got. You'll also see battery recommendations listed. These are suggestions from the system for ways that you could tweak your settings to get better battery life. Scroll further down and you'll find a breakdown of daily usage by app. You can tap on each individual app to get more detail about how much battery that app is using, which is really helpful if you're trying to track down a rogue app that might be draining your iPad. You can also tap on View All Battery Usage to see a more comprehensive overview across a longer time period. There's a brand new app now on your iPad, and if you're a Mac user, you'll already be very familiar with it. It's the Preview app. As the name suggests, it's used for previewing different types of media on your device, whether that's PDFs, images, video files, or audio. But the really useful part is that it also offers some basic editing tools built right into the app, meaning that you won't necessarily need to download a separate third-party app just to make simple changes. So for example, let's say you've got an image and you want to rotate it. There's an option for that right at the top of the screen. Or maybe the image file size is too large and you want to shrink it. You can tap into the menu bar in the top right, choose adjust size, and then use the detailed resizing options to bring that file size down. If you work with PDFs, Preview is also really handy for things like optimizing the file size, signing documents, or filling in forms just using your finger or an Apple Pencil. It isn't a flashy app, but it is definitely one of those practical everyday tools that will come in really useful for a lot of people. The Journal app has finally arrived on the iPad, and I'm genuinely really pleased about this. I never quite understood why Apple didn't make more of an effort to launch it across all major platforms at the same time, but at least it's here now. If you're not familiar, Journal is Apple's own journaling app where your device prompts you to jot down reflections based on what it knows you've been doing, like where you've been, the photos and videos you've taken, and so on. I actually started using the app when it first launched a couple of years ago, but to be honest, I lost interest fairly quickly. The problem was I just don't enjoy typing long entries on my phone, and I didn't find the dictation to be good enough at the time either. So the idea of sitting on my phone and journaling just didn't appeal to me. But now that it's available on the iPad, that changes things for me. I'm far more likely to sit down in the evening with my iPad and Magic Keyboard and actually take the time to reflect and use the app properly. For me, that makes this feel like a whole new opportunity to give Journal another go. So there you go. Those are the 8 features in iPadOS 26 that have stood out the most so far to me. Overall, I think iPadOS 26 is the most impressive of all the operating system updates that Apple announced this year. I really like the way that they've enhanced the iPad's productivity features without trying to turn it into a Mac, which I still don't think would have been the right move. Instead, iPadOS now properly feels like it sits in that perfect middle ground between your Mac and your iPhone. But what about you? What do you make of iPadOS 26? Is there anything you were hoping to see that didn't make the cut? Drop me a comment and let me know. And as ever, if you found this video useful, do please consider leaving me a like and subscribing to my channel for more content like this in the future. See you on the next video.